Welcome, everyone. We'll be starting the webinar in just a few minutes. Thank you for joining us today. Well, it's the top of the hour, and welcome everyone who's joining us for our very first Hot Topics of 2024. Normally, we would have had this in February, but for those of you who were in Las Vegas in February, you know that Sage Intacct held Transform in February. So we are kicking our Hot Topics series off today. Couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. Following the webinar, you will be receiving an email from me with the recording, a copy of the slides, a link to the survey, and by separate email, you will be receiving, if you're here for CPE, you'll be receiving your CPE certification. So on the links in the survey, those will be out within 48 hours, so within 2 days. The CPE certificates will be out within 2 weeks. They're coming from another area of the business, and they've asked us to allow up to 2 weeks to get those out. So if you do not receive your CPE certifications and you believe that you are eligible, please let me know, and I'll include that in the follow-up email that I send to everyone. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce one of our talented, knowledgeable, and just dynamic consultants, Jennifer Patterson. And she's pulled together an enormous amount of quality information for you today. So Jennifer, without any more delay, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dawn. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today for our Hot Topic session and our R1 release cycle review. As Dawn stated, my name is Jennifer Patterson, and I am a Sage Intacct consultant with LBMC Technology Solutions. For the first part of today's session, we're going to do a general overview of reporting in Sage Intacct, and we're going to look at how to customize various reports. We're going to review different types of reports offered by Sage Intacct, discuss the type of report and its customization options. And we're going to focus on formatting our reports to meet the various needs of your company. You're going to see a variety of symbols throughout the presentation. The video icon means I'm going to show a demo in a test environment. A link symbol will have an attached URL, which is going to take you to a helpful resource like the designated topic and the release notes, or the Help Center for additional information. And the people icon means we're going to pause for a polling question. So that being said, let's go ahead and pause for our first polling question.
We're right off the bat. So let me pull that up and launch the first poll question. And this one is very important to me. In addition to hot topics, what we're trying to find out from the audience is, would you be interested, in addition to hot topics, on separate occasions, mini webinars that focused on add-on modules? So that might be things like dynamic allocations, that might be fixed assets, that might be some of the different reporting tools that Sage Intacct has. It might be on some of the Sandbox. And what we're trying to determine is if there is interest there. And if so, we're going to get very busy and put together some presentations for our client base and friends of LBMC Technology Solutions. So let me give you a few more minutes there. And I'm going to close this up in a couple more seconds. So make your selection for the first poll questions. Seems like an overwhelming yes. Great. Thank you for your input on that. And I'm turning it back to Jennifer.
All right, thanks everyone. We are going to look at standard reports first. Standard reports are pre-built reports that let you retrieve data on a module-specific basis. These reports live within the module menus, and they have limited customization options. These reports are going to include things like your trial balance, general ledger reports, your various bank registers, and your aging reports. These reports have a standard pre-built set of filters you can use. So if you find they are not meeting your needs, you would move on to some of the other reporting options. However, before we do that, let's look at a couple of options within standard reports that are often overlooked. So have you ever viewed your general ledger report and just thought, man, there is not enough detail here for me? Well, before you run off to build a custom general ledger report, let's try the following. When you go into the general ledger report, scroll down to format, add any relevant dimensions that you're missing, like your vendor, your class, maybe an ID versus a name, etc. This is going to add those dimensions on the output. If you stop there, you're only adding those to the summary view that you're already used to seeing. So in order to get a detailed general ledger with bill numbers and vendor information, you need to look under the Show Dimensions Value table and find Show Transaction Presentation and select Doc Column Value. These are side by side, making it a little easier to find. Let's update those to show details and show the bill, invoice, or adjustment number. Now when you view it, you'll have a fully detailed general ledger. Okay, what about the pre-built trial balance report? Maybe you already know about this one, but if you don't, it can cause some frustration. Since Intacct creates ghost entries to automatically close out by period for you, when you run a trial balance report, you find that you have no opening balances on your P&L. Now, this isn't an issue at the beginning of your fiscal year, but if you're trying to run this report monthly or in the middle of the year, it's not what you're expecting to see. So if you scroll down to format, there's a little empty checkbox next to retain year-to-date balances. Check that box and you'll find your beginning balances now populate. Each standard report has its preset ability to filter or customize. So make sure you're reading through all of the options available before moving on to a custom-built solution. Speaking of custom-built solutions, custom reports can be created if you find that the standard reports or financial reports aren't giving you the data you need. These are often used to create reports that can be exported to Excel for use in pivot tables or graphs. These are also useful for creating AP or bank reports. An excellent example of what custom reports are used for regularly is the positive pay report. If you have custom reports already built and have the correct permissions to view them, you're going to find them in Reports, Advanced, Custom Reports. While custom reports are truly custom built from beginning to end, we're going to focus on just a couple of customizations you can make to existing custom reports. So let's say you have an existing custom report and you need the columns to display differently. Maybe it's a positive pay report and your bank requires very specific column headings that don't match Intacct's columns. When you're editing or creating a custom report, on step 4 of the report wizard, it will let you select the column sequence. At this point, you can rename those columns. Now, this does not change it across Intacct. You're not renaming any of your fields, but it will allow that column to display and export with a new name. As you can see in the slide, I changed doc or check number to read check number. Something else that you can do with custom reports that may be handy is in step 10 of the wizard, include additional prompts. This allows you to select additional criteria you can choose when you view the report. So continuing with our example of a positive pay report, this would allow you to add the bank account ID to the filter prompts on the report. And now you're able to run your positive pay report for the specific bank account you need to export. And while we won't be creating custom reports today, I do want to let you know where you can go to find these. So as I mentioned on the other slide, you can go to Reports, Advanced, Custom Reports. If that option isn't listed, you either don't have permissions to see custom reports or your company doesn't have any. So to create a new one, you can go to Reports, Report Center, and on the right, click the plus New Report. From there, you can scroll down to Custom Report to either start from an existing report or create a new one with that wizard. All right, now that you know just enough to be dangerous, let's look at financial reports. Financial reports are built using the Financial Report Writer. If your environment was configured with a quick start setup, these would have been built for you out of the box. These are your balance sheets, profit and loss reports, and any kind of budget versus actual reporting. Financial reports are based on data from the general ledger, and they can utilize financial, dimensional, or statistical data. Please note, Intacct offers a 10-hour course on how to build financial reports and dashboards in their Sage University. This has a lot of really good information and is a highly recommended class, especially if you plan on building your own reports. And they have one that's specifically for nonprofit reporting as well, and it's going to look at building reports in a nonprofit environment. Okay, so again, we're not building reports today. We're only looking at customizing existing reports. So as we look into customizing reports, just a note of caution. It is not recommended that you change your base reports or pre-built account groups. Always duplicate and adjust when creating your own or doing heavy customization. Anytime we talk about reporting, it is important to understand the foundation of your financial reports. That foundation is your account groups. Account groups manage your general ledger accounts, while your dimensions and dimensional structures are handled separately and can be used in conjunction with account groups to build out your reports. Any dimensions you utilize can be used to create reports or to filter and expand your account group reporting. We're going to go into a demo environment today to review account groups and their functionality. Just a note, I'm going to be working in a nonprofit demo today, but everything you see will apply to your environment as well. Okay, to navigate to your account groups, you would go to your general ledger, You're going to find your financial report structures, and you're going to click on account groups. This is going to bring you to a listing of all account groups in your system. As mentioned, if your environment was configured with a quick start template, these came pre-populated for you. I'm going to filter to assets today. I figure, assets are universal. If your company doesn't have any assets, that's not really something I'm going to be able to help you with on today's call. All right, let's click on hierarchy over here to the right so you can see how this account group controls the report grouping. And of course, we get a spinning wheel. There we go. All right, so we're going to look at a couple of things here. First, we're going to look at the big picture. So you can see how the overall account group is assets. And this is what you would put into your financial report writer to build out the asset section on a balance sheet. Under that is cash and cash equivalents, investments, etc. I'm going to scroll down here so that we can see accounts receivable net. And you can see this is a really good example of an account group that has other account groups in it. So see how AR net has accounts receivable, allowance for doubtful accounts, and a couple of other AR items. This is building out our reporting categories and managing our presentation on the face of the financials. You'll see that here in a few minutes when we start looking at reports. We're going to look at a balance sheet, so you'll see how that flows through. Okay, a few other things to note on this screen. We're going to skip this calculated column for a moment and look at category. So when I look at investments, I can see how the investments account groups holds two categories. It holds short-term investments and long-term investments. And then the GL account actually lives under that category. This category right here, that's your quick start category that you picked on your GL account. So Intacct's native functionality is to take that quick start category, feed it into these pre-built account groups, and then roll that up into your financial reports. It's why we strongly urge you to utilize those quick start categories on your GL. If you've ever found your balance sheet out of balance since you added a new GL account, well, go back and check your GL account to see if you missed that quick start category. Okay, I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to click edit on our asset. Now, I'm not going to be making any changes today, but if I wanted to make any major changes or build out my own account groups, I'd start by going over here to the right and clicking duplicate. So let me show you what that looks like. What it's going to do for us is it's going to give us an exact replica of our asset grouping. And all right, there we go. All right, so you can name it anything you want. I'm just going to call it assets hot topic. Now you see that it's going to change the display as names. No big deal at all. Just change those back to whatever you want it to be called. And now you have an account group that'll display as assets, and it has an internal identifier as assets _ hot topic. Now, the display names are what display on your reports. So if you had a quick start category that you don't like the way it's displaying on your reports and you wanted to change it, let's say salaries and wages, but you just wanted it to display as salaries, you can change that on the account group, changing these to display as line. Okay, so as you can see in your account groups, it also controls the normal balance that's displayed. When talking about assets, all the account groups are going to be a debit normal balance, but this can be very helpful when creating your net income or other income and expense sections. You can mix and match expenses and revenue and tell Intacct what the final normal balance should be, and Intacct can do that basic math for you. This will impact you more when creating reports versus customizing them, but it's a good thing to be aware of. All right, let's look at one more thing here, and then we're going to move on to customizing financial reports. When I change the structure type to accounts here, you're going to see a calculation method. We skipped over this earlier when looking at the hierarchy because I wanted to show you all the options. So when you create your account group, Intacct allows you to pick the calculation method for the period, start of the period, end of period. So for the period, calculates only the amounts in the period that you selected. So think income statement. Start of the period calculates amounts cumulatively up to the start of the selected period. Think beginning balances on a balance sheet. And then, of course, your end of period is going to calculate the amounts cumulatively up to the end of the selected period. Think ending balances on a balance sheet. So as you can see, account groups do a lot of heavy lifting in reports. And there's even more they can do. So if you're interested in building out your own reports, you'll need to get well acquainted with account groups. Okay, time for a brain break. Let's pause for our next polling question.
All right, I'll pull up the second polling question. And Jennifer, would you mind? A question came in. Let me launch the second poll question and then maybe we could answer that. LBMC would love to be your partner for all things tech. And some of the other things that we offer are cybersecurity, a supplement, or we can actually serve as your help desk or other managed services. So please take a look at the options and let us know if you have an interest in any of those areas. And the question that came in, and I believe Marianne, jump in and let me know if I'm identifying this correctly. Jennifer, I think it came in when you were talking about the GL report, and Marianne's question was, is this done from the top level?
So when you're filtering and customizing those standard reports, it can be done at the top level or at the entity level.
She jumped in to say custom reports in general.
Okay, I would build custom reports at the top level because then they are available across all your entities.
Very good. All right, thank you for answering the poll questions, everyone.
Okay, so let's look at changing up our reports. But before we do this, and you'll probably hear me say it a couple more times, it's not recommended that you change your base reports or pre-built account groups. Always duplicate and adjust your duplicate when creating your own or doing heavy customization. We want to keep those base reports as kind of a template. We want to be able to always have them to go back to. All right, let's go back into our demo environment, and we're going to look at a bunch of ways you can customize financial reports, focusing on rows, columns, filters, and format tabs today. Right. For our first live demonstration, we're going to look specifically at the rows tab first. And for today's demonstration, we're going to be looking at comparative balance sheet, but realize that any customizations we're going to look at is going to apply to all financial report writer reports. Okay, we're going to find our balance sheet comparative. We're going to edit it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and walk through copying our base report so we can customize to our heart's content. Most of these out-of-the-box reports should be sufficient for most of your reporting needs. So again, think of them as templates. All right, let's duplicate this working report. So that way, if we're weeks down the road and realize that we need that base report or another similar report, we still have our original to go back to. I'm going to come up here to the right. I'm going to click duplicate. Okay, I'm going to give my report a new name. Balance sheet hot topics. Perfect. I'm going to click OK. Now, Intacct's going to take you back out to the report listing. So you're going to have to find your new report and click edit. Okay, we are now ready to perform a classic Miss Frizzle and take chances, make mistakes, and get messy with our reporting. Oops. There we go. Gotta love it. All right, we're going to see this report info tab. It's going to show us the report name that we gave it, some other standard information. I'm not focusing on any of this today. We're jumping straight into the rows tab. So here's where you're going to see where those account groups that we just looked at are selected and displaying those rows and categories and subcategories and all of that information that we just kind of reviewed. So the rows tab is where you can control how much detail your report displays when it first runs. I'm going to go ahead and run a preview of my live report so we can see what it looks like before we start customizing it. Okay, assets, cash, investments, there's our AR. Looking at our report writer, you can see there's some plus and minuses over here. And that's controlling if that category is shown by subcategory or only in total. So let's use our AR net as our example. It's currently broken down to show all of those subcategories. And we saw where that, again, was reflected over here. Okay, let's say I don't necessarily want to see those details. I'm going to click on the little minus, it's now a plus, and I'm going to click on preview my report. Again, I'm going to do the live report, and now it's quote unquote gone. It's just rolled up. I can still get to it by clicking the down arrow, but the default is going to be to show it like that. Okay, let's look at this detail level column as well. This controls whether Intacct displays by category or account grouping with all the account level detail. Right now, everything here is set to summary. I'm going to click this little pencil and I'm going to change my cash and cash equivalents to detail. All right, now I'm going to run my preview again. Now here are all of my cash accounts. Okay, you can also use this always display column to have an account or category always show even if zero. The majority of your out-of-the-box financials are configured to hide zero balances, but if you have something you always need to show, that's how you control it. All right, I'm going to save these changes, and we are going to go to our next slide. All right, we're going to talk about the columns tab. There is a lot of functionality within the columns tab, but I'm just going to look at the most common customizations that you're going to use. The first thing you might notice when running a financial report in Intacct is that the reporting period is preset for you. Now, if that just happens to match the period you're using, that's awesome. It's highly likely that you're going to want to adjust those timeframes at some point, though. So when you navigate to your columns and click into your column with actuals information, you can see where the reporting period is set. By clicking into that drop-down box, you now have access to all your reporting periods and can change that base period. This period will run based off your as of date, so you can run current year to date as of any year. Common changes here might be to make it current month, current quarter, or to base it off a fiscal period if your fiscal year differs from calendar year. Now, a note here, if you do have a fiscal year, your out-of-the-box reports do default to current calendar year, so you would have to adjust your out-of-the-box financials to reflect a fiscal year. And if you need the same report for calendar year and fiscal year, you can take a current report that's set to a current year and duplicate it. Then you change those columns to point to fiscal current year, and you have two reports that are exactly the same, but each report reflects the different time period based off your as of date. It's pretty handy to have around so you aren't always adjusting columns to get the date range you need. Okay, you can also customize the column headings and titles on your columns. Column heading 1 defaults to the period name, and column heading 2 defaults to the period date. But you can see that there's a drop-down box for both of these that will allow you to pick a different option. These options include no title or a custom header you can type in yourself. The column title is also pre-filled for you with a default descriptor, but you can overwrite that at any time or erase it. The default column headings are reflected in the bottom right hand of the slide, and any changes that you make to those settings are going to be reflected in that area on your report if you previewed it. Something else you can do in columns is use the expand by feature. This will allow you to expand by time periods automatically instead of building out multiple columns to display the desired reporting periods. You can also expand by dimensions. If you need a column per department or other dimension, you can choose that in your column, and Intacct will automatically expand by that dimension for you. This is especially helpful if you're reporting by multiple time periods or departments, or for nonprofits. If you set up a dimension for your restrictions, you can create a report that shows restricted versus unrestricted without any additional steps. Okay, for time periods, you can see in the slide that if you run by a weekly time period, you can expand by days. For current month, you can expand by weeks. And for quarter and year, it also allows you to expand budget periods as well. Please note that expanding by time period only works with periods labeled either this week or current. So that's going to include any reporting period with the word current in it. It doesn't have to start with current, just include it in the label. So fiscal current quarter would work just as well as current year to date or current year through prior month. The next tab you're going to want to take note of is the filters tab. This one's pretty simple, but it can be mighty. When you're looking at reports and wanting to run by a specific time period, you want to make sure that that as of date is not set to a specific date, but has that grayed out today in it. Then make sure that the prompt has the green and white check mark next to it. What this means is that you can now run that report by any date range you want, just by choosing the as of date when you run it. Otherwise, Intacct will default to today or any date hard-coded into the report. That can make running reports for prior dates harder. Intacct's going to use that reporting period we selected in the column in the as of date to know when to run their specific report by. And we can't leave the filters tab without looking at the dimensions filters. If you're at the top level, but do not want to run a consolidated report, make sure that prompt is checkmarked here. Now you can choose to filter that report by that dimension. In this slide, they've renamed locations to fund, so you might be more used to seeing location there. And you can filter by your locations, even at the top level, as long as that prompt is set. You can also leave the filter blank, and it's going to run that consolidated report for you. So it's nice to be able to choose, right, between running a consolidated report or running it based off of that entity or location, instead of having to go entity by entity to run it. And just clicking prompt means you don't have any other additional steps in your setup to get that. Something to note here, if you have inactive dimensions that you still want to show on your reports, make sure that hide inactives is not checked. And before we leave financial reports behind, let's look at the Format tab. We're going to go back into our demo environment to review this section together. Maybe you found yourself exporting your financial report to Excel because, you didn't like the title or the font or the way the negative numbers were formatted. Well, the good news is this Format tab is about to become your best friend. When you click on the Format tab, it brings you directly into the General section. And this section is where you can change the way your numbers are formatted, including those negative numbers, your rounding, the alignment of your currency symbol. Right, let's click in those negative numbers so you can see your options. You can do negatives before or after. Something to note here is that for your negative number color, it's PDF only. So what that means is if you change it and you preview this live report, it's not going to reflect that change. You'd have to preview it as a print version and preview the PDF. Right, you can also see where you can control if and how zero balances are displayed. I've always loved that display a dash for zero option. And then here at the bottom is where you tell Intacct if you want your dimensions to show as name, ID, or name and ID. Okay, let's move on to the page setup and columns. Here's where you name your report. So, right, the name in Intacct doesn't have to be the name that prints. You can see that this kept the name from the report that we copied. So even though we named it balance sheet topics, it's going to print as balance sheet comparative. So you can change this to whatever matches your company's needs. A great example of this is, a profit and loss report. It's printing out with a profit and loss title. Your company wants it to print as income statement. So here's where you adjust that. You can also add subtitles and adjust alignment. So I still have our preview up from earlier. We're going to take a quick peek to see that title. And let's add a subtitle. Just say Hot Topics Review. And then something to point out here, in case you didn't notice it earlier, is that I can preview this report without saving it. So I don't have to make a change, save it, preview it, change it back, save it, etc. I can just make changes, preview it, and then save it when I'm happy with it. All right, let's preview this thing. Okay, so we added a subtitle, right? Yeah, where did it go? All right, I'm gonna click this little black and white check mark here. And I'm gonna see that subtitles are a PDF only option too. And yes, okay, I could have just told you that, but I wanted to make a point of showing you this little question mark and all this really good information here, and to make sure that you're paying attention to these and using them. They are a great resource, so please don't ignore them. All right, let's keep looking. We're gonna see that we can add page footers. We can change our font type and our text and our colors, and we can make it bold or italic. In some places, Intacct's telling you what impacts the PDF only. And other places you do have to kind of either check those question marks or just see if it shows up for you. All right. You know, the idea is that we're looking for a final presentation report. So it's not going to necessarily impact the HTML version, but it'll give you a really clean copy to export to PDF and present. Okay, scrolling down a little bit more, you can adjust your page settings, which includes page orientation, page size, and then below that is additional refinement on your font type and size and color. Note that the font above page settings is general across the report and for the rows. The column options and fonts controls the column information, and it's going to populate based off your column settings. All right, the last thing here in our format section is rows and totals. Again, we have our little helpful question marks that we can look at. It's going to help us see what these things do. We're not going to read them right now. So some of these options in this area are PDF only. So, just keep that in mind as you're formatting your rows and totals. In this section, you can tell Intacct how many underlines you want for each section. If you want to hide or center the heading, add in page breaks or blank lines. This section is going to take a little bit of playing with to get exactly how you want, but you can preview it before you save it. Just, again, make sure you're paying attention to which version, if you're doing a live or print, to make sure that you're seeing all of your changes reflected. Okay, we are going to move on to interactive custom reports. But y'all stay tuned because we have some exciting updates about reports and report history in the R1 release section. So our last report type we're going to look at today is interactive custom report writer, which we all call ICRW. This is an additional subscription, and there are 2 levels to it. So you can buy a full ICRW license, which is going to allow you to build, it's going to allow you to use that interactive custom report writer to build your own reports. But more commonly, we suggest the ICRW read or run only license. This allows you access to ICRW reports and the ability to run them, but your implementer or support desk would have to build in any additional fields, reports, or reporting needs. ICRW gives you access to the various reporting areas in Intacct and allows you to custom build a report. It does work differently than the custom report wizard and has more functionality around building, filtering, and creating reports. As a matter of fact, ICRW has a whole learning journey within Intacct that you participate in. However, for today, we're going to focus on ICRW run only and what's available to you with that. So let's go into our demo environment and look at that. Okay, now for some of you, this ICRW information is going to be completely new information, and some of you already have the run only license, but you're not using it to the fullest. So we're going to start by looking at the report library. For ICRW, you go to Reports, under Advanced, it's Interactive Custom Reports. Now, up here's the report library. If you have run only and you go into your instance and you click on this, it's gonna be blank. I can access it because I have a full license. Any implementer or support desk person can add these to your environment for you, okay? So don't think, I can't see them, I don't have them. No, it's the help desk, take it away. Okay, as you can see, there are multiple reports that you can have access to that could be beneficial to your organization. Now, if I scroll down, some of these may not apply to you if you aren't using a specific module. But the majority of these reports are utilizing the core modules. So we're going to take a quick look at the AP Vendor Aging Summary and Bill Details Report, a GL Account Activity Report, and the CM Check Register. These core modules are pretty universal, and it'll give you a real feel for what ICRW can offer you and how that's different than what you may be already using. Okay, let's run this AP report first. I'm going to go next to it. Now I'm going to click Run. Now, ICRW can take a few seconds to load, a little bit longer than what you're used to. It's a very powerful tool. It's very much worth the wait. And if you're running the same report over and over and over again, it does get faster, I promise. Okay, so this has the ability to filter. I'm in a demo environment. I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to click View. Okay. Patience is rewarded. All right, you can see that this vendor aging has the basic aging information. There's your vendor ID, your vendor name, the amounts by that date range. However, over to the right, you see a second table. This one allows you to filter by the vendors and that are presented on the report and use the detail that makes up the aging. Now it's auto filtered to ABC office supplies. Here's all of those bills that make up that amount. Let's say I want to look at Adam and Frost. Just click the drop down menu, click on Adam and Frost. It's going to update for me. And now I see that detail. I think that's pretty neat. Okay, let's look at the GL account activity. I'm going to run that. Now, something to note here is the filters available. Your standard GL report is not going to allow you to filter by the user who put in the journal entry. Excuse me. But that's something ICRW will let you do. You can also filter by the account category, the account type, posting date, periods, transaction amounts. I'm going to filter to income statement. I'm going to put in some date ranges. And I'm going to click View. All right. So here's our report. Now, this is just activity report right out of the box. A full user can add additional dimensions for you. And, sometimes people want an easy way to export their GL to Excel for some additional analysis. This report is perfect for something like that. Okay, just one more report that I want to show off before we talk about customizations you can do on ICRW. I'm going to run that CM check register. We're going to note again our additional filtering. I'm in a demo environment. There's not a lot of information here, so I'm just going to hit View. All right, maybe you're looking at this out of the box. You're going, this is great for a check register, but what does this check register do for me that my regular check register doesn't do? Okay, well, I'm glad that you asked because that's going to give me the chance to show off how you can customize your existing ICRW reports. Your current check register is a standard report. You can't change anything about it that isn't in the pre-existing filters. But let's say you want this sorted a different way, or you want the columns displayed differently. With the check register, you're out of luck. I mean, maybe you can export to Excel and do some sorting and that kind of stuff. Or you can put in a help desk ticket and ask us to build out that custom report for you. With ICRW, this is a simple process of clicking and dragging and dropping. I can take this report and let's say I want to sort by vendor. I go up here to these little arrows, I click it, it's now sorted by vendor. Let's say I want to see my clear date next to my paid date. Find this little gray column, click, drag, drop. Now it did reset my sorting, but that's not a problem because I just click those arrows again. Boom, done. Something else that you're able to do with ICRW is allow for additional filtering that's built into the report. Now, I prepared a report that has some filters within the reports. And these filters are different than the prompts, which allow different filtering. So I'm going to run this report. And then once it loads, you're going to see that there's less prompts to filter when you actually run it. I'm going to view that. Oops. There we go. And so here is that pre-filtered report. You can see that I've only allowed for uncleared checks. Now, if I scroll down to the bottom, here's my filtering. So it's already displayed on the report for me. And I know I have filtered to a certain bank, and I've only shown uncleared checks. There is some functionality to move that filtering to the top. We are getting very tight on time. So I'm going to go ahead and say that we have a good feel for ICRW, and we're going to head into our next polling question.
Great. We're going to give Jennifer a little bit of a break while I launch our next polling question, which is a very easy one. And this one is yes or no about do you have specific topics that you'd like to see in a future hot topics? Well, to help me out and to help the team out, when you get your follow-up email, there's going to be a link to a survey. And please utilize that survey to let us know what you'd like to see covered. And we will do our very best to get that squared away. So while you're answering, I'm going to ask Jennifer to stop sharing her slides, and I'm going to bring on Jason Barnes, who is a part of the LBMC Technology Solutions Group. One of the most beneficial things about Sage Intacct is its ability to allow you to do best of breed and pick other solutions. For example, in this case, CRM. And so Jason's going to be talking a little bit about the integration that we can do with CRM.
Yes, thanks,
Jason,
Dawn.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it. So yeah, they asked me to introduce sort of a quick topic today during our Intacct session, and that's about integrating Intacct with other applications like CRM. So I thought I'd take a few minutes to do that for you. So first of all, about me. I am the CRM and Power Platform Practice Manager here at LBMC. My team and I do a lot of integration work, a lot of CRM work, of course, and working with clients on helping them understand how they can better utilize their CRM systems. And of course, one way to get the most out of their CRMs is to account for data that's coming from other systems, such as their accounting platform like Intacct. So let's talk a little bit about why you would integrate the two. So some reasons to consider an integration. Probably the most common is a sales team sort of sales support or sales process support needs. A lot of organizations would like their sales executives and account executives to be able to do quoting in CRM. But in order to do that, in most cases, they need to have an idea on item availability and pricing, which is often mastered in the accounting system like Intacct. So that's certainly one area that we assist with on the quoting side. And then as they produce those quotes, another common integration scenario is when they'd like to take the quote that they've just built out in CRM and be able to push that over to their accounting system as a new order that's to be processed and fulfilled, right? So those two kind of play together there. And then, of course, in order for our sales teams and executives to be able to really do their job sometimes effectively when it comes to nurturing accounts, really working with the clients, they need to have an understanding of their purchase history, sort of like their buying behavior. They might also need to check things like order status. So the ability to take that order history that we're obviously managing in Intacct and be able to sync that over to our sales and front end type systems so that they can better access that information without having to get into the accounting system and or bug the accounting team for those numbers or access to that report or those reports. Certainly being able to push that over is helpful. From an operations standpoint, one of the most probably common things to think about is keeping your CRM and accounting data in sync, right? So the accounting teams or the back office and the front office teams like sales, they're constantly interacting with different people and contacts. They're also learning that contacts are changing, like maybe a billing contact change or a primary contact has changed, or perhaps even new offices where they're needing to update address information. Those are very common. So the ability to put integration in place that will keep that data in sync is obviously very beneficial and really helpful. Another common scenario that we run into is just to help support some AR collections type activities where maybe our accounting team is having some trouble with AR for a particular set of clients, and we need maybe our customer service team or our sales team or executives to follow up with those clients. This way they would have that aging data perhaps in CRM, or at least maybe a current total. But we could also apply restrictions in CRM so that if, for example, we need to put a customer on an accounting or finance hold, we can do that in the accounting system in Intacct, and then have that reflect in CRM so that they know that, oh, okay, well, if this client approaches me about something new, I can't engage with them just yet until accounting gives the okay. Two other very common scenarios is taking a sales opportunity that our sales teams win and bringing that over into Intacct as a project. That's actually something that here at LBMC, we have our own integration that we use in that very scenario, along with contracts. So we can actually take opportunities from CRM along with the line items that make up that opportunity and bring those in to create a new project or create a new contract. For example, the contract would have related line items associated with it. So another common Intacct integration scenario there. And of course, if there's any custom process support that's needed, a lot of times there's requests for integration that are meant to support a very unique process that the particular client has in their operation. So we often find some custom scenarios we deal with. So what tools do we use to support these integrations? So the main thing to understand here when it comes to the methods and tools we use is that there are really two degrees of integration. There is what we call a connector, and there's an actual integration, right? And what I mean by that is a connector is sort of a pre-built set of actions or supported actions, I should say, and supported mappings, if you will. So you can't really, they're not customizable, right? Intacct does offer a Salesforce connector as an example, where you can connect Intacct with your Salesforce environment. It's just not customizable. It's configurable, but not customizable. You can't really change the mappings or the way it behaves per se. It's pretty rigid. Now, that being said, obviously as an Intacct partner, we've found clients with a need for a fully customizable integration. So we have, we're a developer in our own right. We have our Integrator Plus solution, which is our integration platform. So it is fully customizable. We frequently use that for Dynamics and Salesforce integrations, along with other systems. So just because I'm speaking to CRM today doesn't mean that we can't help you with integrations to other platforms and solutions, but we certainly can with both of those CRM platforms. And then from a Microsoft standpoint, if you're invested in the Microsoft Power Platform, we do have the ability to use Power Automate to support integrations. Now, there's one thing, one other method that just to bring up, and this is when we don't necessarily need to repeat or replicate data in CRM, that we just need a user or users to be able to see the data, but we don't want them to get in our accounting system, but we do want them to see things like sales history or invoice history. We do have ways where we can take data from Intacct, pipe that into Power BI or into a report, and be able to display that in CRM as sort of like read-only information, right? So that's certainly possible. Only caveat or limitation there is they're not able to actually interact with the data. So they have to, in other words, if they wanted to pull a list of customers that had a certain, annual sales revenue to date, and it was based on a revenue report, they wouldn't be able to use the view to do that, right? They wouldn't be able to just use this read-only view. So that's in those scenarios, that is where we have to move to a more full, integration or deploy a connector. All right. And with that, that's all I have for my 5 minutes today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that back over to Dawn. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Jason. We really appreciate it. So here is the next poll question for those of you who are here for CPE credit. Just been talking about CRM integration. And so one of the things we wanted to better understand is, are you struggling with any of the following issues? Data silos between Intacct and CRM, could be data accuracy and consistency. Are you having to duplicate or do manual data entry between Intacct and your CRM system? And are you just struggling with a general lack of automation? So Jason, if you could stop sharing, we're going to turn this over to Jonathan, and I'm going to end the poll. So if you give you a couple of seconds here, and then I'm going to close this down. All right. And Jonathan is from Use. And as I mentioned before, one of the great benefits of Sage Intacct is your ability to integrate with best of breed solutions. And so without any further delay, Jonathan Barnett, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, LBMC, for having Use be a part of this. I know I'm super excited to talk to everybody here about Use and who we are and what we do. My name is Jonathan. I'm a senior account executive here at Use, been here for quite a while, but been able to help quite a few clients, and actually a lot of clients, help out streamline their processes. And so I'm going to do a brief overview of Use. I know I got 5 minutes, so we're going to jump on in and learn a little bit about us and who we are. So further ado, let's get rolling. So we've been around since technically 2008-ish, 2009. We developed a smart data extraction. So anybody that's ever heard of OCR, imagine that, but enhanced, right? So imagine it on steroids. And so we call that smart data extraction, where it indexes each and every word. AI and algorithms kicks in. It reads it just like a person would, and it puts it to header fields. It memorizes your GL and all your dimensions and everything from last time. So a lot of times all you're doing is just reviewing your coding from there. So we put that smart data extraction in the cloud in 2010, and that's when we were born. And since then, we've grown quite a bit. We have 2 offices, one over in Europe. We have one here in Dallas, Texas, that does all of North America. We have over 5,000 clients. We are a Sage Tech partner with over 1,700 Sage clients, Sage Intacct, and a bunch of other ones too as well, which is pretty cool. We've won some awards. We're pretty proud of those. So you see a wide variety of G2 awards, top accounting, and some other really cool ones as well. But who uses Use, right? It's kind of a tongue twister. You see a wide variety here. And if anybody was at the Sage Transform, we did a speaking session with Major League Baseball Players Association. They are clients of ours, but you see a wide variety here. Some of these people you might know from Planet Fitness, Miller Waste, all the way down to some other smaller entities and locations as well, and companies. So we did an ROI. If anyone's ever wondered how much it costs to process single invoice, we did an ROI with our friends over at Arden Partners. And so when we did that, they came back with this. And so they found out it's about $15.55 to process single invoice. I've seen this with other clients as high as $18, $19, as low as 10 or 11. But the median is $15, all the way down to receiving and paying 28 days. We know that is from the time we get it to the time we pay. And if you're manual, we know that process can be pretty wild, right? So emails, maybe papers getting taken to a desk, get lost, etc. Also, maybe being on the phone with suppliers could also happen. But we've also seen a few other things too as well during that report. Late payments and duplicate payments also happen, and that's because there's no reporting or visibility in the organization, right? So when you come on with AP automation, that number here drops from $15 down to 3. Your days go from 28 to 6, giving the company and the organization about a 70-80% savings overall, which is pretty incredible. So use is a full bundled solution. So a lot of this we can configure. A lot of this you maybe need or maybe not need, right? So we can help with your budget. We can help create the purchase request. We can also have the purchase request, purchase order done in use, or maybe it's done inside of Intacct or your ERP from there. We can do PO matching. We can also do payments too as well. Use is very configurable for the organization, which is pretty incredible from there. So front end processing of AP, right? So we'll start over here to the far left, purchasing. And so we'll see there. So if you're using purchase orders inside of Intacct, not a problem. Or your ERP, we can have those come over, sit in the back of views. If you need help with purchase requests or purchase orders, that's also not a problem as well. We can create that purchase request, purchase order inside of use. If you need a workflow on that, you can do that. The great thing about Use is we have unlimited users. So you can have as many people as you need inside the platform, and also as many workflows as you need, right? So inside that purchase request, we can send it out, receive it, you name it, we can do it all. But then we'll say it's sitting in the back. So now capture piece. So you have an AP email box, great. We can have that invoice automatically come through. If it's an attachment, if it's in the body, we can have it come through. Also, if you need to drag and drop it from maybe another screen or your desktop, take a picture on your cell phone or tablet, bunch of different ways we can come in. So how is Use unique, right? How are we different from everybody else? We take any type of file. We don't have templates. We don't outsource. So that smart data extraction is reading any type of file, any type of page in 20 to 30 seconds, right? So if there's a PO in the back, great. It's going to match to that PO. If not, also great. It's just going to memorize coding, extract the data from the page, put it to the header field. We're going to mirror your Intacct instance, right? So once it's done, we can have it go straight to Intacct, or we can go through a workflow approval where one person can approve an invoice, 2, 12, 17, you name it. We can have as many people as you need to approve it. Once it's approved, we'll instantaneously send it to Intacct. We're also different here because we'll send the image, the audit trail, and any comments all in a picture format over to Intacct as well. Say you need help with payments, great. We can also send that payments or data once it's paid inside of Use. We have virtual credit card, check, and ACH. And once it's done, we can send that payments remittance data over to Intacct. And then, but say you're making a payment inside of Intacct, we can have it come over to Use as well. We also have a no-touch workflow where we can automate a lot of your processes as well. That ends my time here. Here's poll question number 5 for everybody. I want to thank Don and the rest of everybody else too for their time. And have a good one. Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Jonathan. We really appreciate it. So here's poll question number 5. Based on what Jonathan has talked about in the last 4 minutes, are there any pain points or challenges that you're facing? Missing invoices, high costs? It's pretty sobering to see the costs associated with not having an automated system. And then, of course, the time and delays and just the lack of visibility into where your numbers truly are. So while you're answering that, Jennifer, we've had a number of questions come in. Before we get into the release, can we take a couple of minutes to answer them?
Sure thing.
All righty. So the first question is, how do you set the default budget to be selected in a report instead of a specific year's budget? This would allow the report to adjust automatically to the current year.
Okay, so out of the box functionality for Intacct does allow for that. So if you're in your columns and you have a budget, you're going to see it's going to pre-populate that budget for you. Now, if you change this to a non-default budget, you do have to change it back to your default budget. But you tell Intacct which budget is the default budget in your budget repository. So right here, we set up our operating budget. We marked it as default. Whenever I create a budget column or any existing budget columns that have not been adjusted are going to try to match to that default. It's one of the reasons we say don't create a budget for every year. Create a default operating budget and append year over year so that your reports stay in sync.
Very good. Here's the next question. What is the difference between blank lines above and blank space above?
All right, shut up. Stay in there. All right, so if I go to format, and I'm going to pull up rows and totals, row formatting is blank lines above. Total formatting is where your blank space above is. So it's where it's showing on the report. And then if you need to know what that looks like, I'd recommend playing with it and previewing the PDF or using these little question marks.
Oh, that'd be a good place to drill down into those. Here's another question. Is there a place in Intacct to select entity is a nonprofit to automatically change financial statements to correct titles? For example, statement of financial position instead of balance sheet.
So that is set up when you are initially provisioned. I talked about those quick start templates. There is a nonprofit quick start template. So if your organization was set up with a nonprofit quick start template, it would have automatically changed that to statement of financial position, functional expense statement, all of that. If you are already provisioned, configured, and working in Intacct, it's a more manual process, unfortunately, to get those titles updated.
Okay. Here's another question. If additional GL dimensions are added, for example, a new department, does anything need to be updated on report settings to include this change?
No, Intacct will automatically pull that in for you. If you have manually created filtering, like instead of expanding by departments on your columns, you have individual columns filtered to those departments, you may have to do some work there. But as far as is that dimension available in reporting, Intacct pulls that in for you.
And next question, can we add to show up the filters on reports? For example, show dates 10/1/23 through 12/31/23 and project name or code?
So within ICRW, if you've created that filter within the report, so it's not one that you were prompted to pick, we can show that. Otherwise, there's very little functionality off the top of my head that I can think of that would automatically show that. There is a way in your financial reports. Now I don't believe this shows on the actual face of the financials, but when you're in your filters and you click show time period here, when you first go to filter and you put in those dates, it'll show you those time periods and make it a little bit more visible.
All right. And final question, at least that I see right now. If you created a custom report or account group, etc., at the entity level, is there an easy way to duplicate it to the top level?
It depends. Certain things can be exported and imported, and other things will just have to be recreated. So like a custom report itself, if it's not showing up, you'd have to rebuild it. An account group, you could export and import. So it's going to be kind of a case-by-case basis on that one.
All right. Well, that's all of the questions that I saw in the Q&A in the chat. So Jennifer, it's back to you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, everybody. I love questions. I think they're the best. Okay, so we're going to use the remainder of our time together, and we're going to talk about Sage Intacct's R1 release. So the agenda for this portion of our call includes an overview of updated or newly added features, and these were released on February 16th. So you might already be feeling the impact of these changes. Towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you a few additional resources, and we'll review the dates for the rest of the 2024 calendar year so you aren't taken by surprise when those releases are rolled out. Just as a reminder, Intacct releases updates on a quarterly cycle, and many of these ideas are based on ideas submitted by customers that are posted in the Intacct community. If you don't have access to the community, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, let us know. We want to help you get access to that. It is a great resource. You can easily find the link to the release notes from your homepage screen in your Intacct environment. There in those release notes, you can find video recordings and more detailed information available directly from Intacct for further review. As we go through our slides, just a friendly reminder, our link symbol is an attached URL, which is going to take you to the designated topic in the release notes for additional information. A live demo is attached to our movie icon, and the people icon means we're pausing for a polling question. As we go through our release slides, we're going to first look at added features, and then we're going to look at updated features, and we're going to go on a module by module basis. Before we jump into all of that, let's pause for our next polling question.
All right. Here we go. So this one, would you like to be the subject of a customer success story write-up or video? And the options are, yes, please contact me. Let me talk with my team, or maybe sometime in the future. What we typically do with these success stories is it's a problem solution benefit, and we look at what you were looking to solve with Sage Intacct and what it was like working with us, and some of the benefits. What has your organization been able to do now that you've got a modern cloud-based solution, integrations, all of that sort of thing. So I'll give this a couple of more seconds before I turn it back to Jennifer. Thank you very much for responding. Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, so our first module area that we're going to look at is company and admin. So with the R1 release, Intacct has added functionality around user IDs and permissions. The biggest change you're going to notice is that there's now the opportunity to have two emails on an account. You can have the account email address that's attached to the user record and the primary email address that's attached to the user contact. Okay, take note that this means if you need to change your email within Intacct, you may have to change it in two places. Also realize that to avoid creating duplicate contact records, creating a new user does not automatically create a contact record for that user. If you are creating a new user who is also an employee, think dimensions, customer, or vendor, Intacct recommends that you add them to the customers, vendors, or employees list first. Then add them as a user so you can link their user to their existing contact record. It is very important to make sure that your users, who are also customers, vendors, employees, are linked to their user ID properly. Otherwise, you will have issues with approval processes and other Intacct functionality. Previously, Intacct only had a primary email address that was shared between a contact record and a user's account. This meant that a contact record was automatically created for you when you created a user. And any changes made to the contact record would automatically update the user's account information. So that no longer happens. So the change does allow you to have those separate emails between the contact and the user record. But if you want to keep them in sync, again, you have to change that email in both places. To do this at the user level, you click on that contact name and edit the contact record as well. Okay, we're going to actually take a look in Intacct at how all these changes are impacting Intacct. Cancel out of here. We're going to go to company, admin, and users. Now I'm going to walk you through the whole process. So we're going to click the plus mark and we're going to add a new user. I want you to see how this functionality has changed because remember, Intacct used to automatically create that contact for you, and now you have to do that part yourself. So let's put in some information here. Oops. All right, I'm just gonna have to type it in. Okay. I'm gonna just make myself an employee user. Now you see this contact name is still empty. If I had already created a contact for myself, I could pick it here. So if I had already made that employee dimension or vendor, I could scroll down, find my name, we'd be good to go. Because I don't have a contact as part of the user ID creation, I now have to add a contact as well. You can do that from the screen just by clicking add. I'm going to enter in some information. For this demonstration, I'm going to keep my emails the same, but this is where you could put in a secondary email. I'm going to save this. And you can see I now have a contact created. I'm going to save this again. I'm not going to worry about incurring additional fees. Okay. Now we talk about editing. If I need to change an email, I would find that user. I'd click edit. Here's where that account email address lives. This email is associated with the user ID and can be used for Intacct account management, which we'll talk more about that here in a minute. You can also see over here to the right that there's a primary email address listed. That's that email that's living on the contact record. And of course, they match, but I do have the option to change one or the other. So I mentioned how you could change the email on the contact record from the screen. So let's look at that really quickly. We'll click this drop-down box for contact name. I'm going to go ahead and click view because I want to update the current contact. We're not trying to change the contact. This allows me to view that contact record. And then to update any of this information, I would click edit. And then I can make changes. Now, if you do have this user and they are connected to your vendor, your customer, your employee, recognize and realize that changing this contact information here will impact that contact record, that employee, that customer, that vendor. I'm just going to add a 1, 2, 3 to my email. I'm going to save it. All right, now you can see where there's 2 different email addresses. That one's been changed. Okay, so maybe you're wondering why we have separate emails. Well, the new account email address has been added to enhance security by being only available to 2 designated users, you and your company admins. This limited availability ensures greater privacy and protection from unauthorized access. The new account email address helps Intacct more efficiently communicate with users who are having login related issues. And the account email address also ensures that users have a reliable means of receiving vital account information without the risk of unauthorized changes. All of this plays a direct part in the other added feature I want to share with you today. And that's the self-service account recovery process. So self-service recovery allows you to initiate recovery directly. If you're used to reaching out to your company admin or support desk when you're locked out of your account, there's now no need to do that. Simply navigate to the Sage Intacct login page and select Forgot Your Password. Intacct will then walk you through how to reset your password and get back into your account. This account emails, having 2 emails also allows you to receive secure notifications. So that'd be things like account alerts and recovery options. Those are sent directly to your registered user account email address. Okay.
Jennifer,
Yes.
a couple of questions about this.
Yes.
One, did you say that only 2 people, an admin plus one other, can have 2 different email addresses?
No, everyone has 2 email addresses. The only 2 people who can see those email addresses is you, the user, and then the admin user. So all users across the company can have 2 emails. But the security there is that only you get to see it in your admin.
Okay. And another question, is there a way to limit new user access to only one location?
There is. There, when you're in a user ID, you can see this user entity. You can go to the entity itself. If you're needing to go to locations below that, there's some functionality there as well, but you start talking about maybe smart rules or other. You would need someone to help you talk through that and set it up. It's not something I can do in a Q&A, but yes, that functionality is there.
No more questions at this time.
Perfect. All right. Since I'm already in here, I did, we talked about adding them as an employee dimension or a vendor dimension before you create the contact or before you create the user ID. So just in case you're wondering, well, what happens if I had to create my user first? So let's go over here to employees. Now I have access to all my contacts. So I could, on my employee, also click that same contact. And now from the other side, right, I've linked that employee and that user. It's not the end of the world if you create a user and then later you need to add them as a dimension. But best practice is still to add the dimension record first, then the user. You run some risk of creating a duplicate contact record and not having that link established, because a lot of times the person adding the dimension isn't necessarily the admin who's also adding users. So something just to keep in mind.
Okay, there's one more question. If you limit a user to 2 entities, do they automatically have access to the top level?
Okay, so let me go back over to my users. Edit. So they actually automatically do not have access to the top level. Once you access them to an entity, they cannot log in at the top level because they're restricted to entities. If you want them to have access to the top level, you have to check the box. All right, so updates in company and admin, something to be aware of is that Intacct has updated permissions around their time and expense modules, ICRW permissions, and within the constructions module as well. So if you subscribe to any of those modules or features, review the link, see if any of these changes impact you. By default, the majority of them have been turned off as of February 16th. So you don't have to worry about you secretly got additional permissions and people can do stuff that you weren't expecting. These permissions are there to allow for additional functionality. So for instance, I have an ICRW one up on the slide, and you'll see where you now can allow reporting access to areas that are typically outside the range of permissions for that user. So an example of that would be you have an FP&A person, they need to run vital reports on ICRW. Previously, they were locked out of those because they didn't have permission to those modules. Now you can grant them reporting access to those areas without giving them like transactional access. Okay, moving on to AP. If you subscribe to Intacct's AP automation, there's a new feature rolling out for early adopters, which you might be interested in. AP automation has added functionality around the line level GL account and dimension coding. This feature increases the accuracy of automated draft bills, providing intelligent predictions at the line level. So what does that mean? Previously, AP automation populated the line item dimensions in draft bills based on the coding you used in the most recent bill from that vendor. So the current feature works in most cases and definitely helps with data entry. But you might find yourself wanting more dynamic dimension coding that's not limited by past bills. With the latest improvements, AP automation detects patterns in how you select dimension values for individual line items. This means that over time, as machine learning recognizes changes that you repeat, Sage Intacct is able to create draft bills that include those dimension values you intended. The idea being, of course, that you can spend less time correcting coding details and post those bills more quickly. However, as stated, this new feature is currently for early adopters only. So if you're interested, you need to reach out to your account manager and let them know. And then just in case you're wondering, what is AP automation? What are you talking about? That's Sage Intacct solution to streamlining your bill entry by automatically creating draft bills from documents that you've emailed or uploaded. If you subscribe and this is enabled, Sage is able to assign each entity an email address, and you're able to then email a bill to that email. The system would then automatically identify the vendor, fill in the bill details for you, attach the source document for reference, create a draft bill that you're able to review, update, and submit. So it can be pretty handy. And speaking of AP automation, if an updated feature that's now available is you can now export AP automation subscription usage. So AP automation has tiers, and that's something you might want to be able to manage. So if this applies to you, again, check out the release notes for more specific steps and information. But this report can be found in company, admin, subscription usage. Another updated feature that Intacct's added with R1 impacts AP bill approvals. If you're using bill approvals in your environment, you can now receive an email notification when the bill you submitted has been approved or declined. So previously, the approver would receive an email that a bill is out there to be approved. They could approve it, decline it, and then the user who submitted the bill for approval would not necessarily be notified. So Intacct looked at the user who drafted the bill, not necessarily the user who submitted it. And that means if you're using any kind of automation for AP, there's a real possibility that no one got notified when something was approved and ready to move to the next step. So now Intacct will look at the submitter, send you a notification that your bill was approved or declined. To receive these notifications, you do need to make sure that your configuration has email notifications enabled, and that also your personal preferences are set to allow for email notifications as well. Okay, our next updated feature in AP allows admin users to delete advanced filters in the pay bill screen. So previously, if a user created an advanced filter in the pay bill screen, then their account was later deactivated, you were stuck with that filter forever. However, that's no longer the case. Now a user with admin privileges can remove it from the advanced filters page in pay bills, and that allows you to clean up those filters and leave only the ones that are still in use. So we're going to take a quick look at that. Not everybody's familiar with pay bills. So we'll navigate to accounts payable. We're going to navigate to pay bills. So this filter by is up here at the top of your screen. When I click on it, see I have 3 in here, and oh look, one is a user who no longer works here. Don't want that. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go over here to the right. I'm going to click Edit Filters. This brings me into the filter itself, and I have the option as an admin to delete this filter. Yes, I want to do that. And now it's gone. So that's wonderful. Okay, there's a lot of things going on in AP in this release. But let's look at some features that have been added and updated that apply to both accounts payable and accounts receivable. A new feature added in the R1 release is the ability to simplify contact lists. So if you've ever been in Intacct in an AP or AR transaction and you've had to change out a contact for any reason, your only option was to select from all active contacts. And in case you haven't noticed, Intacct creates a contact for everyone and everything. It can become a very long list very fast. So Intacct has now created a new configuration setting that will allow you to select which contacts are available for selection. This is a configuration setting, so your admin would have to make this change, or if you're still in implementation, your implementer. As you can see, you have the option to include all contacts, restrict to vendor or restrict to customer contacts, or you can restrict to contacts related only to the selected vendor or customer record. Okay, let's go into our demo environment and see what the impact of those changes look like. We're going to go into AR for this one. We're going to add an invoice. I'm going to just grab this first customer here. I'm going to click, we're going to change the bill to, and look at this list. Like, it's really long. There's vendors in here, employees, maybe some entity information. It's kind of messy. Not really a fan. So I'm going to navigate to our configuration settings. I'm going to scroll down to contact settings. And I'm going to change that to say restrict to customer contacts. There's a little box here that's telling us the impact of that configuration changing. I'm going to click through and say okay, but you should definitely always read all of these warning boxes carefully. Make sure you know what they say. I'm going to save this. And we're going to try that again. I'm going to create an invoice from this screen. I'm going to choose the same customer. Now let's try to adjust our bill to, and suddenly it's very easy to see this is a much shorter list. It's more contained, and it's really only pointing to relevant contacts. While we're in here, I want to go look at the customer record itself. So here's that customer. I'm going to click Edit. I want you to see that this feature doesn't change adding a contact to a customer or vendor, only what's populating on that bill to, ship to, remit to, pay to on the bill and invoice. So I'm going over here to contact list. And from here, I can add to that customer's contact list or yes vendor if we were in AP. And you can see I still have access to all of those contacts on the actual customer record. And I can, of course, add a new contact. All of that functionality is the same as it's been. It hasn't changed. Intacct just simplify things at the point of transaction entry. Okay, cancel out of this. We're going to leave our demo environment for a little while, and we're going to look at the updates for accounts payable and accounts receivable. Okay, restricted users can no longer reverse transactions that have line items for location and departments they are restricted from accessing. So prior to release, restricted users could reverse a bill that had multiple entities or restricted dimensions on them. Now, if you're a user who's restricted by location or department, you can no longer reverse bills, invoices, or payments that have line items outside your location or department restriction. So instead, you would have to get a user that's not restricted by location or department to reverse those transactions for you. If you are used to using restrictions at the user level and now find that they are unable to reverse something, this is your reason why, or it's your most likely reason why. You're either going to need to get an unrestricted user to reverse those transactions or potentially reevaluate your setup. If this is something that seriously impacts you or has the potential to seriously impact you, please let us know. We'd be happy to help you work through that. Cash management. So cash management has added bank transaction dating. You can now control the dating of bank transactions based on the time zone of a bank account. This helps to avoid time zone anomalies that can occur with bank transaction dates and transactions that are generated from creation rules. So before, transactions generated by creation rules were dated based on the company time zone, and bank fee transactions were dated based on the user time zone or the company time zone. So this could cause inconsistent matches for reconciliation. Now you can set the time zone on the bank account itself. So this setting determine the timestamps for both created transaction and bank fee transactions, and that helps to increase your matches and speed up reconciliation. To set this up, you would need to navigate to cash management, setup, accounts. You're gonna select the appropriate type of account, your checking or your savings account. And then from that checking or savings account list, you're gonna edit the account you want to update. You'll find the option for banking cloud time zone and select that time zone. Then you'd click save. All right, let's take a break for our next polling question.
Very good. So let me pull that up. And this is out of left field, I know, but when it comes to March Madness, the brackets are going to be selected this Sunday. How are you feeling? Are you feeling pretty good about your favorite team? Is your favorite team on the bubble? Your team probably won't be at the dance. That's how I feel about my Texas Longhorns. And then, is March Madness what tax accountants experience? Probably. All right. And while we're doing that, here's a question that came in. It admits off topic. When will remit info be included in the ACH files that we upload to our bank? I'm having a horrible time with vendors not finding their payments due to us not including remit to info on ACH. Is that something we can answer here, or would we have to get back on that one?
I think we would have to get back. We can So we don't control when and what Sage Intacct releases on their quarterly basis. However, if you're having an issue with something like that, we can look into it and see if there is a solution to your issue that's not dependent necessarily on a quarterly release. But that's definitely not something I know off the top of my head. Are we ready to jump into the next slide, Dawn?
We are. I had one person say that the poll question was not showing. I did see results on it. So it was up. Well, I don't want to do that because it will. Marion, if did anyone else have an issue with that, first of all? Okay. Marion, if you would just send me an answer in the chat, and I will adjust it on the back end. Okay. So Kim is saying that her internet went down briefly when the poll question was up, but luckily when it kicked back in. So Marion, please just respond in the chat. Just say poll question number 7. Here is my answer, and just say March Madness is something that tax accountants deal with. Sorry about that. All right.
If my slides would cooperate. Okay, we're going to look at added functionality in our general ledger. Now, this is one that I'm personally excited about, probably because I'm a nerd, but this new feature in our general ledger module is that you can now download import templates directly from the import pages for the following types of imports. This would be all types of journal entries, including adjustments, entries for user-defined journals and statistical entries, account groups, account group members, reporting accounts, account allocation definitions, and account allocation groups. Okay, so why do I think that's exciting? Let's go into our demo environment. We're going to review the old process, look at the new process. So before, I wanted to find an import template. I'm going to have to navigate to company. I'm going to have to go to setup. I'm going to have to go to import data. This would give me access to all of this. And I'm gonna have to locate the transaction I'm wanting to import. Now, it does try to bring you into the general ledger area. For ease of use today, just gonna point out general ledger journal entries. Here's my template. I have to click on it, download it, and then I can import it from here, or in some cases from within the screen in the general ledger module. So what that means is if I have a general ledger user that also needs access to templates and importing, I'm giving them access to this company module and this import data screen. With the new process, I can go directly to general ledger, journal entries, the top right, it's this button that says import transactions. I click on that, and there's my template to download. And this is where I import my transaction. It's all in one easy place. I don't have to remember to navigate somewhere else. I don't have to worry about additional permissions, all right here together. Okay, so remember when I said to stay tuned for exciting updates about reports and report history? Well, we're finally there. Intacct has introduced version history for financial reports. What does that mean? Well, before, when you saved a report, those changes were final. And if you're making small incremental changes over time, you can lose sight of the original report or any of those steps in the middle. So Unless you want to duplicate a report every time you make a change in order to keep those steps, you're stuck with your final report. Okay, I still highly recommend you keep our base reports out there untouched so they can be used as a template for future reporting. However, now, when you take one of those reports and you duplicate it, you can make all the changes you want and still go back to an earlier version. It makes living that take chances, make mistakes, and get messy lifestyle a lot easier when you can restore prior version history. So let's look at that in the demo environment. We're going to go back to our balance sheet that we were changing in our hot topics earlier. I'm going to click edit. I'm going to go up here to the top right for more actions. I'm going to click on the drop down menu. And now you see a view version history. Okay, you can now see the original version and that version we saved with our row changes. So let's make a quick change in the columns. I'm just going to change the reporting period, change it to the current month. I'm going to click save. And it's going to tell me that those changes saved to a new version of this report and remind me how to find that version history. Click OK, go back to version history. And now I have 3 versions. I have 1, I have 2, and then I have our current version. Okay, let's view version 2. Go back to our columns, and you can see it changed it back to current year to date. You can also see that my options in the top right have changed. I can now preview this report, restore it, or cancel out. Now, if I had clicked cancel, it would have taken us back into our current version of the report, no changes made. If I had clicked restore, it would have given me an alert saying that the report had been restored to a previous version and that this was the new current version. At that point, you can review your report and see that it did indeed restore the previous version, and any changes made between version 1 and 3, or 3 and 5, or 4 and 10 would have reverted back to the version selected for restoration. Maybe you're thinking, well, what about version 2? If you review your version history again, you'll see that version 2 is still out there. And now Intacct says that the current version is version number 3 and lets you know it was restored from version number 1. Version history will save up to 100 versions for you. An updated feature in reporting is a streamlined process for setting up report schedules. When you create or update a report schedule, Intacct checks that the schedule will not produce more than 31 reports for past dates. This limit prevents performance problems that could result from running too many reports at one time. So, for example, suppose you create a schedule to run a report daily for a year. At the end of the year, you review and decide to continue the schedule indefinitely. You edit the schedule, remove the end date. You inadvertently didn't change the start date. So running the schedule would have created the report for every day from that start date to today. However, with a new process, Intacct will cap that for you at 31 reports. That helps with processing time and power. And now you're not getting 365 reports that you don't really need. Okay, we're going to look at a few changes made to the user interface that could impact you. The first thing to note is that some of the user interface labels and definitions were updated and changed. There's a full listing out there in the release notes, but if you've noticed some terminology changes or found that your custom reports no longer run, that's why. For your custom reports, y'all just need to edit them and update the definitions. Okay, maybe you've heard us mention list enhancements before now, but now it's available in even more areas. So you can access this new list view in attachments, checklists, classes, customers, departments, journals, locations, vendors, a lot of areas. It's really exciting. Intacct's rolling out this enhanced list view to all customers on all lists and in upcoming releases. We're going to do one more demo. We're going to look at this functionality in a live environment and kind of see what that looks like. We cancel out of here. I'm going to look at our vendors. you want to use or try this new list interface, you would, give me a second because I already had it on. You're going to turn on list beta interface next to the add button, and then it's going to bring you to that new enhanced view. If you're used to using custom views to manage your list in Intacct, you're going to love this feature. It gives you more functionality right in the same screen without having to create the view, edit it, play around with it. You can get exactly how you want, real time. Still have the ability at the top to filter. You can type in, state, filter it, you're good. So let's do some customization real quick. I know we're running short on time. I can drag and drop column size, not drag and drop, but I can drag, resize columns. I can drag and drop columns, move them where I want. If I want to add something, I don't have to go into manage my view, edit my view, change my view. I just come over here to this gear and configure columns. And then Intacct's going to make it really easy for you to kind of filter by typing it in. I'm going to take out country. Oops. I want to add in some 1099 boxes. And then I'm just going to click apply. You have functionality to freeze columns. And so, that's not going to help me today because everything fits in one. But if you have to scroll to get more information, you can freeze it. Sorry. You can sort by any column just by clicking on it. And if you get this how you want and you want to save it, you can at any time by clicking Manage View and Save As. And then it's going to save it just like it saves your custom view. Now, if you get out, you haven't saved it, and you come back in, it's going to reset it to the default. So if you really love your custom view that you just created, please save it. This gives you advanced filtering right here within the same screen. You have and or operators, all that really fun stuff. And then I want to show you what feels like a game changer. You can view your record details next to your list and easily navigate the list records while reviewing those details side by side. So here's split view. I now have my list of vendors. Here's my vendor record. I can click in here. I can edit. I can work. I can save. I can cancel. My list is still there. Other things that List View will do for you is bulk operations, improved organization, and central management of list views, and then it adds more colors for displaying your hierarchy. Okay, we have one more polling question.
Well, this is the last one. So congratulations, everybody. We've made it to the end, at least of the poll questions. And the poll question is, did you know LBMC Technology Solutions has a YouTube channel with a Hot Topics playlist? And a link to that channel will be included in the email that I send in the next couple of days with the recording and the slides. So I'll give this a few more minutes, not minutes, but a few more beats. Give everybody a chance to make sure that they have answered. And Marianne is still not seeing the poll questions. I cannot figure that out. I'm seeing a ton of other people that are in the window and able to. So just you put it in the chat for me. Perfect. Perfect. Very good. I'm going to end the poll. And this is sort of our last call for questions too, isn't it, Jennifer? Do you have anything else that you'd like to show our audience today?
No, I was gonna go through or just to let you know those additional resources are out there. So yes, as I'm doing these two quick slides, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, we don't have a way of knowing what they are. But we recommend Sage Intacct University. The Help Center is great. Again, the community is really robust. You can put ideas out there for Intacct, get questions answered, all kinds of great stuff. And then just as a reminder, those releases are quarterly. They're automatic, require no action on your part, and include significant new features and product enhancements. The next one scheduled for May 10th. This calendar can be viewed through the homepage on your Intacct environment. There's a link, so you can see that at any time. And of course, keep an eye out for email registrations for our future hot topics and release features. It's always one of our LB&C consultants that are helping out with those. And I know Don would appreciate any ideas for future hot topics to be considered. And that brings us to
Wonderful. So there are no questions in the chat or in the Q&A, so I wanted to thank Jennifer very much. She did most of the heavy lifting today. And I wanted to thank Jason and Jonathan. We had a trio of J's. And we look forward to seeing you at our next Hot Topics events. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you being here.